Hello everyone, welcome to the second video of learning how to program with Java. So in the last video we learned about variables and how to print things into the command line. And in this video we're going to be covering if statements, else if statements, and how to get user input. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to learn here is how to get input from the user. So let's first have a look at this snippet of code here so we can determine what this does right now. So the first thing we have here is string name equals Bob. So this tells the computer that whenever we reference a variable name, say that it's Bob and it's a string. And the same thing down here, whenever we reference an integer lucky number, reference that as 7. So then this final line down here tells it to print out the information. So it'll print out name, which is Bob. It's the lucky number, so this will always print out lucky number is, and lucky number. And lucky number in this case is 7. So if I hit run here, as you can see, Bob's lucky number is 7. Okay, so then what if we wanted for the user to input their own name and their own lucky number? Because right now you have to go into the variable here and type whatever you want in order to change whatever is going to be printed out. But what if the user doesn't have access to your code and they only have access to this output terminal down here? So we're going to be covering how to get input from the user. So the first thing to do is to import a package called scanner. So what we do is type import java.util.scanner. Remember, everything in Java is case sensitive except for the variable's SU name. So for import I has to be a lowercase, Java J has to be a lowercase j, and scanner has to be a capital S. Okay, so then in order to input the name, we first have to create a scanner. So what we do is we type scanner, and then whatever you want to call it, we'll call this one input equals new scanner system.in. This is the name of the scanner. You can call it whatever you want. So what we do now is we're going to modify this string name here. So we're going to delete Bob, and then we're going to write input dot next line. So what this does is it checks the output here for the next line that is entered, or whatever there is. So to show you this in action, I'm going to hit run here, and then I'm going to type, let's say the name is going to be David. So it's going to check for the next line inputted, and have a look at that. And now it's David's lucky number is 7. And as you can see, I don't have David anywhere in this code. It's just the user that has inputted this line. So looking at this code here, I do want to point out that there's a capital L here, so watch out for that. And notice how there are 2 parentheses here followed by a semicolon. So what this does, it lets you input a string because it checks for the next line. So everything in the next line will be inputted. So it doesn't matter whatever this is, because remember, anything can be a string basically. So it can be numbers, it can be even characters, special characters. It can be anything. But where the restrictions come in is when you have to input something like an integer. So to input an integer, you do input.next capital I int, which stands for integer. So then first let's input our name again. So I'll say David again, and lucky number is let's say 19. And as you can see, David's lucky number is 19. But what if I didn't input an integer into there, and I wrote like D? You would get an error inside of your code. See, java.util.input mismatch. So this is not the right input. You have to specify what type of variable you want to input. and you have to have the correct scanner thing here to match that. So these are the two most commonly used ones. In my opinion, I use these ones pretty often, and they are pretty common. Okay, so now that we know how to create a scanner and how to get input from the user, let's learn how to use an if statement to check for the value of that lucky number. Okay, so now let's learn about if, else if, and else statements. So in the last video, we covered Boolean, and I promised you that it would come in handy for if and else statements. So, and here is where it comes in basically. So here I created a Boolean called bool, and it's equal to true. So then I have an if statement down here as well. So to create an if statement, let's just write another one here just to show you guys. If parentheses, open curly brace, and then close curly brace. So basically what this is doing is it's checking if whatever condition is in here is true, then run the code that is in between these two curly braces. So I've written an example here. So if bool equals true, which in this case it is, then print out hello, and end curly brace here to tell it that that is the end of this snippet that I want to run. So if we click the run button up here, we can see it prints out hello. And if we set this to false, oh, oops, I forgot a semicolon there, my bad. Goodbye. Perfect. That is exactly what we wanted. So I have an else statement down here. So basically, if Boolean is not equal to true, then print out this basically. So if nothing up here is true, then print out this. So there's also one more thing that's kind of an in-between. That's called else if. So if the top statement, if, is not true, then check to see if the next else if statement down is true. So if bool is false, let's say like good day. So if I run this now, you can see it prints out good day because bool is not equal to true, and then it checked to see if bool equals to false. So it shouldn't ever reach this else statement because a Boolean can only be true or false, but that can, it's a different story if we're using integer here, which I'm about to show you in a second. So basically, once again, this is checking for this statement here. If this statement is true, then execute this code. If not, go to the next statement if there is an else if statement and check if that is true. And once it reaches the very bottom, just run whatever is in here because none of these above are true. So basically, if everything above the else statement does not pass the condition, then it'll run whatever's in here. So this is like none of the conditions were met. Okay, so now let's learn about how to use if statements with an integer. So in this snippet here, I've set up an integer called lucky number again, and it's equal to 7. So have a look at this code here and see if you can figure out what the code will print out. Did you manage to figure it out? It will print out the first statement here, which is that is a good lucky number. Because remember, if lucky number is equal to 7, which in this case it is, as you can see, lucky number is equal to 7. So you must have double equals here. I just want to point that out actually. You have to have double equals here because that means like a condition. Basically, it doesn't mean that this is equal to, it means to check if it is equal to, basically. If it is equal to 7, then print out that is a good lucky number. So if I hit run here, so you can see that is a good lucky number. Okay, and what if this number was 13? If we hit run here, that is not a lucky number. And then what if it was anything else? Let's say 100. It will say that is just a regular number. And this is because 100 doesn't meet the condition, because the lucky number is not equal to 7, because it's 100. 100 is not 7. 100 is not 13. And therefore it'll run the else statement, because that one doesn't have any conditions. It is like the last resort, basically. If nothing above here matches up, then just run whatever is down here. Okay, so now let's learn about how to incorporate the two concepts here and see how we can compare maybe like two conditions at once. So we have half of a condition here, which is lucky number equals to 7. So this checks to see if lucky number is 7. And this checks to see if name is equal to Dave. So what this and does here, it says that both this condition and this condition have to be true for this code to run. So in this case right now it is true, so it will say you have passed the check. But if we were to delete one letter from Dave here, it will not run, and it'll do the else statement down here, which is you have failed to meet the conditions. Okay, so then we can also do an or, which is two of these like line kind of things here. I have no idea what you call them. But two of those, we'll do an or. So either one can be true for it to run. So we'll delete one letter off Dave again. We'll just name D. And the code will still run because 7 is true, even though this is not true. 7 is true. The lucky number is equal to 7, so it will run the code down below. Okay, so now for the final part of this video, let's learn about how to incorporate these two concepts we learned, user input and if statements, and see how we can write a program out of it. Okay, I've written another snippet here, which has incorporated all of the concepts that we have learned from today. And I know it looks a little bit overwhelming right now, but I promised I'll go over and explain it. So let's start from the very top here. So once again, we have our scanner, which is called input here. And in this case, we have a print statement in the beginning here asking the user to input a name. So if we run this, it'll look something like this, right? It'll look enter a name. So that's really helpful for the user, because now it's just not like a blank thing there and the user doesn't know what to input. So what I've written down here is a password referencer thing. So the first statement here says if name dot equals David, or the name is equal to David Smith. So if he inputs either one, either it's David or David Smith, then it'll tell him the password is whatever this number is, 48729345. Else, so if it is not David or David Smith, then check the next statement, which is the else if statement, and that's Isaac. If the name is Isaac, or the name is equal to Isaac Newton, then type out the password. Print out the password 64684565. And if none of them are account holders or whatever these names are, then print out the password 978964425. Or better yet, let's just say not registered. And once again, you can keep on expanding this here. So I'll just give you another example, right? Just to show you how easy it is to expand this. So let's do if name dot equals Bob, or name dot equals let's say he might input his full name as like Bob Ross, right? Then print out this line here, your password is I don't know, let's put some numbers again. There we go, right? Now you've just incorporated Bob Ross into here as well. And have a look up here. We actually have, once again, we have user input to compare the strings. So let's run this and let's check it out and see what it does. So it says enter name. So we'll enter David. And it says password is 48729345. And if I write David Smith, same thing. If we write like Bob, not registered, because once again, remember that it has to be a capital there. But if you don't want that, of course, you can do ignore case, which is ignoring the capital and lowercase. And if we were to input that Bob again, your password is 164984635. And if we write nothing, like some random letters, not registered. So you can see the endless possibilities that can come from just using if statements and user input. You can write a whole bunch of cool things. But that's it for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed and learned something. Leave a like, subscribe. Thank you.